this evening. It's my great honor and humble endeavor to serve you. We have certainly as a people, we have overcome so many challenges through the generations. And in America today, it's a burden to our heart and spirit as American citizens to look across the land and see the struggles that exist within our societies. And as a young man growing up, my father instilled within his children the deep understanding of communicating honestly and candidly and speaking from our heart. I'm the seventh of 8 children. I have 6 sisters, why I say yes ma'am all the time. And I was born in 1961. I'll be 60 in a few days. My family reflects every shade of America's society, every possible ideological interpretation exists within my family. And yet we love each other. We gather as a family and we have very interesting debates sometimes regarding the future of our country, or what's best and how we move forward in our journey as a nation. We certainly have our differences, but we always look forward to the next gathering, and we always part with love and respect and an understanding that it's okay to have different ideological perspectives or political affiliations, as long as we don't lose the bond of family. So when the chamber asked to meet with us, and we put on a schedule, of course, but when I'm in Louisiana, we constantly move from constituent meeting to constituent meeting. If I'm home for more than just a Saturday and Sunday, my schedule is filled with my obligations and duty to meet with constituents across 10 parishes. So the schedule fills up, and the North Lake Charles Chamber was on a schedule. I was looking forward to it. We had a beautiful gathering, and we broke bread together and prayed together, and we discussed some of the challenges of the community, and of course that includes recovery from a brutal storm season last year. That includes the challenges that COVID has presented to us as a community and a nation over the course of this past year. The workforce challenges, many things, the I-10 bridge, economic opportunity as it unfolds into the near future and beyond for our children and grandchildren. We had a beautiful meeting, and it lasted quite some time, and we responded to some specific asks and inquiries from the chamber and their members, who were very well organized and extremely effective in communicating the message of their people, their community, their businesses that they serve and work with and for to their congressman. And I listened very carefully. Again, a lesson learned since childhood. So my one ask of the chamber was that they helped to facilitate and organize the town hall here in North Lake Charles. And I asked that it be this year, and here we are in August, and I'm honored to stand before you. I'd like to get to questions quickly, because I'm prayerful that you have many. There's no topic that's off limits. We just ask that we recognize that we're all family, and we want to communicate honestly and candidly with love and respect for each other, regardless of the topic. It can be a very difficult topic. America faces great challenge. Our community here faces incredible challenge. Things are hard. Life has been brutal. So I'm certainly not looking for softball questions. I'm prepared to answer from my heart any inquiries that you have. because that's the way this thing is supposed to function. I work for you. That's what the founders intended. That's my constitutionalist core principle. And that's the driving reason that I stand before you, a humble, regular American man that serves you in Congress. And I stand before you this evening as that guy. So, before we begin with questions, we'll give you a brief update, where we stand on a few things regarding hurricane recovery. You know, we're all citizens of South Louisiana. Again, I'll be 60 in a few days. I've lived through probably 20, 25 major storms. You know, dealing with an incoming hurricane and weathering that storm and living through it and recovering from it is part of the DNA of South Louisiana. If you're from South Louisiana, you're very familiar with hurricanes and hurricane recovery. And it never gets easy. It wasn't easy 60 years ago, and it won't be. I promise you, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be dealing with hurricanes and storm recovery. But in all of that time, in my 60 years, I've never seen a storm hit so hard and so fast as Hurricane Laura. I've never seen winds that powerful, that compressed into one area with a targeted citizenry, Lake Charles, coming in through Cameron Parish and right up the ship channel. And our offices were destroyed. I was here the next morning. We got here about 10 o'clock. And we virtually haven't left since then. I had staff sleeping in the emergency response center for 3 weeks, immediately after Laura. And I, as a South Louisiana man, I was stunned at the damage that Laura did. And yes, I have lived through many storms, so have you. So for some of us, we have a certain attitude about storms. You know, a hurricane is like Tuesday for us in Louisiana. But I've never seen one hit that hard and that fast. And that my office has been dedicated and focused since hour one of Hurricane Laura to helping the community stand back up. And some of our major difficulties have been the very unnavigable bureaucracies at the government level, state and federal, to access existing assistance from departments and agencies, and we refer to as the alphabet agencies. We don't refer to them very favorably in that way, by the way, because their very bureaucracy is what makes it difficult to navigate through the services that they allegedly render. At a time of great need, the last thing that we expect to have to deal with is resistance from the government that says it's there to help us. So I have shared your frustrations with the complexities of navigating through the bureaucracies at the state and federal level. We have pushed very, very hard on the alphabet agencies and departments of the federal government and worked very closely with the state. The state has its own bureaucracies and its own difficult to navigate issues. The way money flows to citizens for recovery from the federal government is through the state. This is the law. This is the way things work. When monies are appropriated at the federal level for specific disaster recoveries from declared emergencies and named storms, that money is delivered from the federal treasury to the state treasury, and then it's accessed by the local citizenry and local government entities through the state mechanisms. So none of us have been satisfied with the difficulties that we've encountered to access the recovery funding and monies that have indeed been appropriated and delivered almost $1.5 billion. I mean, a billion's 1,000 million, okay? So a tremendous amount of money. You're talking about $1.4 billion we've delivered. The federal funding, appropriated funding that my office has battled for, has been delivered to the state treasury. And access to that money has been challenging. We worked with hundreds and hundreds of cases individually. It never stops. My staff in Lake Charles, they've never stopped working. Our office was destroyed. It was not habitable. But they've never stopped working. My staff in D.C. and Lafayette is dedicated. No such thing as weekends and holidays. We have storms to recover from. And not just one, but two. We go, what the hell? We had an ice storm. You know, I was watching reports from NASA about potential meteor hitting it. Yeah. You know, what is God going to throw at us now? A storm after storm and an ice storm. It's been incredibly difficult and challenging. And yet, I have to say that my optimism is high because my faith in God and in the people I serve is unshakable. The bottom line, we will stand together through thick and thin, and it's been a very challenging, painful year, has it not? Between COVID and the hurricane season, the storm season of last year, we've just been through a lot, man. And our bond, I believe, that holds us together as a people, the fabric that's woven through the flag that waves in glory above us. That's our thread, man. That's our family. That's our heritage. That's our color. That's our creed. That's our background. Regardless of who we are, where we stand on the economic strata, or what our political affiliation is, or ideological perspectives, we are Americans first and foremost. We're a family, and we're going to stand together. That's my optimism. That's what drives me every day, and my staff to work on weekends and nights and holidays in service to individual citizens and constituents that face ridiculous obstruction from government at the federal and state level, obstructions that should not exist to begin with. We should not have a government so complex that no one can operate through it. Applications so thick that you got to hire an attorney and an accountant to get through. Technical skills so steep. You got to get your grandchild or your child to teach you how to work the computer in order to process your application. That's right. And how you going to process an application online when you got no internet because all the power lines are down? Yes. Government officials say, oh, just go online. Yeah, just go online to this website. Fill out this application. Yeah, we'll get right on it. Oh, by the way, nobody's at work right now because of COVID, and we realize, you know, there's not a power pole left standing in Calcasieu, Cameron Parish, so y'all probably don't have internet. Most of us didn't have cell service. But yeah, just go online and file your application. You'll be good. Man, I got no roof.
That's right.
You think I got a laptop? No, listen. It's much more reflective of my nature to just go kick the door, right? That's not the uniform of the day for me right now. That's not the best way that I can serve the constituents that I have sworn to represent. Focus, passion, intellect, diplomacy, gentlemanly skill, working across the aisle, respectful communications with the executive branch. I oppose our current executive branch. Obviously, I supported President Trump. I make no apologies for that. I'm a free American. But on January the 21st, President Biden had a letter from me from my office, signed by me, written by me, on his desk in the White House on January the 21st, the day after his inauguration, acknowledging him as our president, advising him that we had an excellent relationship with the previous executive. I worked in service to the people of the 3rd District of South Louisiana, and by extension all American citizens, and we look forward to the same kind of relationship with his administration that we had with the last, because the campaign's over and we got work to do, baby. So we have used that kind of focus and effective communication very aggressively, because I'm not a passive guy. And we don't have time to play. We had the most brutal storm season arguably in the history of Louisiana. Now I recognize that a couple of 100 years ago, who was keeping track? So, you know, when the media and these guys say this is the worst storm ever, that's a long time. But certainly in my lifetime, I've never seen a storm season as brutal as last year. And please, Lord, from our lips to your ears, protect us from another storm season like that. So we have used very aggressive communications on your behalf regarding it. Many of you have specific issues that we can very likely help you with regarding insurance difficulties. There's been a great deal of insurance fraud, criminal behavior. People have been arrested. There's some people that pay attention to me, some of the insurance folks. You're going to be arrested. We're live streaming on Facebook now. Go pack your desk now. Start shredding those documents you think we don't have copies of right now. Some of you have specific issues that our office can help you with. And when you present your questions, if you have a specific issue for us to help you, your family, your business with, just get with my staff. I'm going to introduce quickly. I got John here, Elizabeth here. I got Laura here. I got Laney here. I got Tyrone here. I have beautiful, dedicated staff in Lake Charles, Lafayette, and D.C. And they all work for you. And I work with them. We are one. And your specific needs and requests for assistance to navigate through, and I'll say again, a difficulty that shouldn't exist to begin with, you're finding, you're running into that wall. We will help you get through it. We've opened and closed in 5 years, pushing 2,500 cases, I would say. Somewhere north of 2,000 individual cases. These are individual constituent cases with men and women, families, businesses just like yours that have come to us with a specific problem that they're encountering with the federal government, usually navigating through some bureaucracy. No fault of the constituent. 100% the problem of the federal government that we have allowed to become made manifest in my generation, because things were not this complicated 50 years ago. So under my watch, under my generation's watch, we've allowed this thing to be created in D.C., this massive federal government that's almost impossible to deal with. So somewhere north of a couple of thousand individual cases, we have opened, addressed, and closed it very successfully for issues like you may be facing. So if you have those specific cases, we generally leave a town hall with an additional 20 or 30 case files in the process of being open. And I hope to do the same this evening. I'm going to touch on you an update on the I-10 bridge. I-10 bridge at Lake Charles. And I lived in Moss Bluff in 1999 and 2000. I came to know the Lake Charles community at that time, ran a business here. This is before I had returned to uniform service as a police officer. I was after the Army. I was in business, and I did well. I lived here. I came to know the culture and the people. We needed a bridge then. I mean, that was a topic then. In 1999, man. I remember the big thing was Y2K. Remember the world was going to end Y2K? That didn't work. We needed a bridge then. The bridge was old and dangerous then. So, all these years later, when the Lord put it in my path to run for Congress, which was not on my radar at all, God just decided that I needed to be punished, I guess, maybe a congressman. But when that became part of my life, immediately, one of the first things I said, we're going to work on getting a bridge built, because what the hell? How are we still talking about a bridge? Man, I lived in Lake Charles 15 years ago. We needed a bridge then. What has happened? So we dove deep into it as soon as I was elected to office. Where are we now? 4.5 years later. You're closer to breaking ground on a new bridge now, by far, than you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 or 20. And it was just as much of a need a decade ago and 2 decades ago as it was 5 years ago when I was sworn into office on January 3rd, 2017. The final environmental impact study is due to be completed by the state sometime before the end of the year. That's their current assessment. That's been delayed and delayed and delayed, but that's kind of how government operates, isn't it? We've been pushing and pushing and pushing. The final environmental impact study is one of the accomplishments that the state must complete before the federal government can appropriate funds. Also, the state and local elected officials have to determine exactly what type of funding, how they want to fund the bridge. That's up to the state and local officials and the community. How do you want to fund this bridge? The federal funding, virtually guaranteed. I have unanimous consent amongst my colleagues in Congress to have the bridge funded through the appropriation mechanisms of the federal government. But that will add a couple of years to the construction, to the process, the completion of the construction, as compared to a public-private partnership. Public-private partnership with a toll, they do that across the country. I don't have a problem with that, I just don't like tolls for the local folk. I think that if the state moves forward with that type of funding, which is certainly the state's right, and the right of the local elected officials and the local folks, they have a voice through your local elected officials and your state officials who ultimately have to make that decision. You certainly have the right to go in that direction. I don't oppose it. I recognize it is faster than the appropriation system at the federal level. You basically remove literally a couple of years in the timeline because you can pull the trigger so fast on beginning construction if you go that route. The downside is you have a toll. Now, communities are doing this across the country. So again, I don't have a problem with it. I just don't think local folks that have to cross a bridge all the time should have to pay a toll. And I think it's pretty simple to me. If you're crossing a bridge with a vehicle, I mean, you have a vehicle that's registered in the state of Louisiana. You have to have a tag on your plate, right? But eventually you're going to have some blue lights behind. So you have to have your vehicle registered. You have to have a vehicle registered. You have to have an address to register that vehicle. To me, the state and local officials could come to an agreement if they move forward with a public-private funding mechanism, P3. If they move forward like that, there should be a mechanism that when you get your registration for your vehicle, the one that you're driving across a bridge, if it falls within a certain address, within a certain distance around the bridge, I don't know, 10, 15 miles, you live within the bridge, 20 miles, you can have a carve out, in other words, geographically, for your address. So when you go get the registration for your vehicle, if it's one of those addresses, Your fee is waived for your speed pass. When you get your tag for your vehicle, you get a speed pass for your windshield. So you cross the bridge to and fro without having to pay the toll. I think that's a reasonable and fair suggestion. It's a suggestion from a congressman who's also a citizen of the state. I have the right to make suggestions to my local and state elected officials. I'm not mandating this. I don't have any authority there as a federal congressional servant. But I do think it's a pretty solid idea, and it would protect the local communities from being impacted by the daily toll. It would virtually erase objection to the toll. Because businesses will panic. You think the trucking industry running I-10, the industrial corridor of I-10, is going to make a decision whether or not they're profitable for an entire year if it costs them a couple $100 for a speed pass for their rigs? No, they're just going to buy the speed pass to come through. And other folks that are passing through, just like when we go to Texas and we're following the GPS, we have no idea we're on a toll road till we get home a couple weeks later, we get a bill in the mail. Happens to me every time. Every time. So folks driving through, eventually they'll get a bill in the mail, say, oh, appreciate you crossing through Lake Charles, send us $45. Listen, my point is, we're close to breaking ground on a new bridge at I-10 in Lake Charles. And your local and state officials have been fantastic to work with for the last 4.5 years. My office has been heavily involved. Your bridge task force has done a great job. And moving back 4.5 years, our original question is, why do we not have a bridge? What exactly is the problem? And what we discovered was there was no consensus for one plan. After all those years, there was no one plan agreed to, one footprint. What would the bridge look like? How can you possibly fund it if you don't even know what it's going to look like and what it will cost to build it? My office facilitated a meeting in October of 2017 here in Lake Charles. We brought together stakeholders, local elected officials, state elected officials, DEQ, EPA, Corps of Engineers, all under one roof to say what would the bridge look like. And we had like 5 plans presented to us at that meeting that were discussed. And it was really the first time that the community had come together like that under one roof and said, why do we not have a bridge? What would the bridge look like? And there was discussion, some would say argument, over which plan was best. Well, out of those 5 plans, we ended up with a couple of plans that everybody pretty much agreed one of these 2 should probably work. And out of those 2 plans, sort of a consensus, what's called the final preferred alternative, that's the language that the state uses, is it ultimately the final footprint of the bridge was agreed to. And that allowed the specific environmental impact study to move forward, which again is a state obligation. They've been working hard on it. They've had some delays. I respect that. John Wilson is my friend. If I call him right now, he'll answer the phone. He works very hard. He's one of the governor's right-hand men. I have my differences with the governor. Everybody knows that. But we respect each other and we communicate with each other for the betterment of Louisiana. It's okay to have differences, right? So we identified the fact that there was no consensus on one footprint for a new bridge. We brought the community together, the state, federal, local officials. And we moved towards a consensus of one bridge, one footprint, one plan. And ultimately, those plans were drawn up. And then there was further debate. And then George and his guys put the task force together, and the community came together with more and more meetings, and consensus was agreed to. And then you get to a point, listen, it's a good problem that we're discussing how are we going to fund the new bridge. Think about that. You weren't having that discussion 5 years ago. How are we going to fund it? Oh, well, we don't want to toll. We want full federal funding, or we need 100% funding. We don't want to go with the toll because it's faster. Think about this. This is a good problem. It's reflective of how close we are to breaking ground on a new bridge. Now, jobs for the construction. That's a 5 or 6 year job. You have my commitment that my office will push very hard for local contractors and employees to have those jobs. There will obviously be competition for the thousands of jobs of that construction project. You're talking about it, man, if you have a solid job for 5 or 6 years, you're talking about something that can change your family's generational direction. A hard-working mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, young family trying to make it, to know that they have employment, if they perform at work for 5 years, that means you can buy a house, you can pay off a truck, you can set some savings aside, you have your health squared away. That's a difference, can be generationally the difference for a family. So I do not want to see a bunch of license plates from Texas and Oklahoma and across the country. You understand? I'm just saying. I serve. I don't have anything against those folks. They're working too. They're families too. They're Americans too. They're children of God as well. They're brothers and sisters just like we are, but they don't live in the 3rd district. And the bridge is being built here, so where the list falls on the desk of the decision makers that are processing the applications for the contractors and subcontractors and employees that will be working on the new bridge, the local employers and the local citizens should be at the top of that list. Now, if you don't have the qualifications for the job, you don't have the qualifications for the job. I don't argue against that. But if you do, by God, if you live here, you should be the one to get the contract. That's just my opinion. And that's where my office stands, officially and back channel. And you hear it here tonight, but we've had this conversation many times amongst my staff. And as we move forward, the delegation, would you unify to help us with the bridge, by the way. Mike Johnson's with it, Julia Letlow, Steve Scalise, Garrett Graves, Troy Carr, myself, John Kennedy, Bill Cassidy, all here. We all concur that the bridge at I-10 in Lake Charles is perhaps the most significant major construction project in the entire country. Garrett Graves says it's at I-10 and 110 in Baton Rouge, but he agrees that it's a close second. So you have unified support for the new bridge and it's moving forward. There's still some things to be done, obviously, before you see ground being broke, but you're very close. That's real. That's the truth. Anyone that says something different is being disingenuous with you, or they just don't have the knowledge and the facts. That's where we're on the bridge. It's where we're on hurricane recovery as an overall. On the national front, we have serious issues with the border. We have 250,000 illegal crossings a month. This year we're headed for 2 million illegal crossings. It's a threat to the fabric of America, not because, listen, all of us have fences, walls around our homes and our businesses. Not because we don't want folks to come to our home and business, but because we want them to use the gate or the door, right? We have ports of entry into the United States of America, many of them paid for by American treasure, manned by Customs and Border Protection and Immigration. Highly trained officers. Most on the southern border, about 75% of them are of Hispanic origin. They all speak Spanish. It's almost a requirement. Their families are of Hispanic origin, many of them. Originally, we were born in Mexico, came here, and became American citizens legally. So we have ports of entry on our southern border across 1,954 miles, of which I have scouted every mile, by the way. We have ports of entry. You know you can come here legally, but without any documentation, in the United States, you can come into the United States of America, undocumented legally, if you come through the port of entry. Did you know that? There's no reason for America to allow 250,000 illegal crossings a year. It has nothing to do with our lack of compassion or understanding for our fellow man. That's just not the case. We're the most generous, compassionate nation regarding immigration policies in the Western world. I challenge you to find another developed nation with an immigration policy as flexible and compassionate as ours. But to try to absorb 250,000 illegal crossings a month into the fabric of our society, our school systems, our healthcare systems, we're overwhelmed. You understand? And the reason we have legal ports of entry is the same reason you have a gate in your fence and a door in your house. You certainly don't expect people to climb in over the fence, do you? There's generally going to be a problem if they climb the fence. Well, our homes, and our businesses, by extension, that's the sovereignty of our nation. We have problems at the border. It's not being addressed very well by our executive. We're pushing hard on that. All I can tell you is that I'm the top Republican on the Homeland Security, Border Security Subcommittee. And the voice of the Republican Party regarding border security. And we're in the minority. And as a constitutionalist, that's fine with me. America made that decision. The Democrats have majority control of the House of Representatives and the Senate and the White House. I would have things differently, obviously, but I'm an American first. Here you go. That's family. That's family. So as a member of the minority party, that means on committees, we don't have majority control over investigations and oversight of the various committees, including my own committee, Homeland Security, under which Border Security falls. So we've covered some local topics and some broad topics. Budget is a big issue right now. It's the appropriation season. At the federal level, we face a staggering debt. Infrastructure is a big topic right now, largely misunderstood, the bill that was passed by the Senate. And I'm looking forward to a variety of questions from the citizens that I'm honored to serve. So, do you have an order for
Yes, sir.
for questions?
So thank you so much for the robust
Yes, ma'am.
update. And I love the idea about the bridge and the local. I'm from San Francisco, and we started by paying 75 cents when I was a child, and now that's $11 to get back.
Wait, you said it was 75 cents?
75, and I'm not 100. So I want to, just one moment, I just want to ask you all again, if you could silence your cell phones, I would love that, so that we won't have interruptions, because we're about to enter into question and answer period. And if you'd like to ask your question, can you come up this way?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Higgins.
Yes, sir. God bless you. Thank you for being here.
Do you have a number, how much that bridge gonna cost around?
They're estimating that 700, 800. You understand, you're talking about close to $1 billion. So there's the final preferred alternative. It has an estimate of cost, but it's based upon construction materials at the current level. So when you're talking about steel and concrete in this era where inflation is significant, I mean, look what happened to the price of lumber over the last year.
Right.
So the variance in estimated expense for the total cost of the bridge is quite a moving target. But you could say that anywhere from $750 million to $1.5 billion, it would be I would say is a safe estimate of the ultimate cost of the bridge. But you're talking about appropriations over the course of 5 or 6 years. So that would be done incrementally. The way the law works, no matter what type of funding that the state decides to go with, it's not like they said, okay, well, here's $1.5 billion. So the cost could change during the cost of construction is my point. And then,
Okay.
so the next year, there could be more or less monies appropriated based upon estimates for what they can spend and invest in construction ongoing for that approximate year, for that next fiscal year.
Okay, now, if it does pass, where you have to pay, how many lanes on each side you gonna have to have where the traffic won't be all backed up, waiting for somebody to come through? Because if you're gonna have to pay, you're gonna have a lot of lanes on each side. So how many lanes are you anticipating on the east and the west side of the bridge?
Yeah, well, we're talking about a very modern, multi-lane construction. No fewer than, first of all, one of the reasons that the current bridge is classified as from an engineering perspective, dangerous, is not because it's in danger of collapsing, but because it has no shoulders, narrow lanes, no median. You understand? So when you talk about lanes, right now you have 2 lanes on the old bridge, going in each direction, but there's no shoulders and no median. So if I say that we're talking about a 10-lane structure or a 6-lane structure, we're talking about 6 lanes with proper medians and wide shoulders, etc. Not 6 lanes like the 2 you have now. So we want a beautiful bridge. We want an iconic bridge. I support the rendering that you've seen go around. I think you should have walking. I think it'd be good for tourism and for local folk to have a walking and bicycle path over the bridge. I support that version. If you've seen that rendering of the bridge, I think it should be beautiful as the eyes gaze upon it from the lake. I think folks coming through should say, "Oh, wake the kids up! Be sure to film this beautiful bridge in Lake Charles." Yeah, and if the local and state elected officials feel the same way, by the way, they want a beautiful bridge too. The Bridge Task Force wants a beautiful bridge. They want something that's reflective of the spirit and the beauty of the community. So multiple lanes obviously cost more. A beautiful, iconic bridge with a suspension look, with a bicycle path and a walking path is more expensive than just a basic concrete, here are your lanes, get across the bridge. But that's the bridge the community deserves, and that's the bridge that we're going to fight for. And ultimately, when your state and local elected officials determine what the final plan will be, my office will support that decision. But in the meantime, we're pushing for a beautiful, iconic bridge. And I stand in agreement with the local and state officials. I don't mean to speak for them. I'm just telling you, I've had so many meetings with them that I feel comfortable saying that your local folks who've done a fantastic job, and your state elected officials and the governor's folks as well. Sean and his people have done beautiful work. We all want a beautiful, iconic bridge with multiple lanes and bicycle path and walking path. Yes, sir.
To dig into it, location, so we're guesstimating for it to replace exactly where the old one is, to go in that same place?
No, sir, the new footprint will be, excellent question, the gentleman asked, will it be where the old one is? Close, but it'll be a much broader footprint with entrance and access and alternative routes designed to help local surface traffic and to ensure that local businesses have more easy access than you currently do from the I-10 footprint and the current bridge. So north of the existing footprint, but south of the railroad tracks would be the new footprint for the main structure that crossing the water. The entrance and exit footprints and the and the new construction for surface highways and roads that tie into the interstate system and the major surface roads in the community will be designed to help community traffic congestion and to support access to local businesses. So those are the focuses of the footprint, and I hope I've answered your question. North of the existing structure, but south of the railroad tracks, which is, you know where the tracks are relative to the current footprint, can't miss it. The industry agrees with that, what I'm describing, and that's the final preferred alternative footprint. That's pretty much what it looks like. I suppose I should have brought, I'll send it some of that data if the chamber doesn't already have it to share with you citizens and your business owners, but excellent question, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to change the topic just for a little bit?
Ma'am, you can speak on any topic. I'll work for you. I have 700,000 bosses. You're one of them.
Okay, well, I know a lot of people care about the bridge, but I just wanted to get this off my chest as one of the, representing moms out here. We had a Tuesday night school board meeting, and there must have been 100 parents who were just so upset about forced mask mandates in the school system, so upset. And this is my pet topic. I organize conferences for a living. My #1 conference is called Health Freedom Summit. So I'm a critic of the vaccine mandates. Thank you for that new bill. Critic of the forced masks, and I could talk so much about that, but I think we're all about, in the natural health world, we're all about root causes. How do you fix the root cause? Because you're never going to overcome a chronic illness until you find out what it is that's causing it. And I guess after some reflection, I think free speech is actually one of the root cause, because we have our Facebook groups, we have our websites, we have and it's all being taken down. Our means of communication is being taken down. I have gotten banned from Facebook, posts from Instagram, shadow ban. Thanks. I know people.
So would you like me to address the mask mandates and executive proclamations?
And we're trying to rebuild our.
Thank you for being passionate and involved. Your family and we respect your question. Is that primarily what you'd like me to address, is the mandates and the issues on oppression and freedoms like that?
Right, I know I didn't have a question, but what can be done to get back free speech so then we can solve the problem of all the other problems that we're facing?
Well, let me respond. We are blessed to live in a nation where we can discuss the impact of individual Americans' impression that their government, our opinion that our government is oppressing our freedom of speech by assembling for freedom of speech. Here we are in a town hall, free Americans, discussing what we believe is a threat. Some of you may have opinion otherwise, and we respect that. This is a part of what I was talking about, the fabric, the strength of the American people is our relationship and our love and respect for each other and the allowances for varying opinions. I feel very strongly against government-mandated oppression of individual American freedoms. This is not a new position for me. I'm a constitutionalist. I support individual freedoms and sovereign rights of our states. I support a smaller, less intrusive federal government that has less to do with your life. I support decreased tax burdens and decreased federal regulations. This is reflective of my core principles as a constitutionalist, and I have the right to those core principles because I'm a free American, which you have the right to disagree with me. Where the real debate sort of manifests itself within the fabric of our society and where we should all be concerned is when any government executive entity would have the power and authority to restrict your interpretations of what's best for your free family and your business, your employees, your clients, your customers, your freedom to move about, gather, and assemble. We are a nation born of imperfect men driven by perfect intent. And the founding words of the preamble to our Constitution is, in order to form a more perfect union and establish justice. This is an acknowledgement by our founders that they were imperfect men. To take that knee and ask the anointing of our Savior upon the birth of a new nation to say, in order to form a more perfect union, that's an acknowledgement that you are an imperfect union. In order to establish justice, the first sentence from the preamble of our Constitution, to say that you want to establish justice is an acknowledgement that there's an absence of justice. Can I get an amen? There's great power in the humility of children of God when it's expressed like that. And our nation was born from that spirit. And our right to assemble, our freedom to assemble to redress grievance is part of our First Amendment protections. So regardless of who is in charge of the governor's mansion, what party is in power in the White House, regardless of your political affiliation or your ideological perspective, you should be concerned as an American when any executive determines unto himself that he has the authority to unilaterally restrict your family and your freedom. Children's attire and their attendance at school should be subjects determined and discussed by moms and dads and families and school administrators and teachers, not by career politicians in Baton Rouge or D.C. or anywhere else. That's your family, that's your child, that's your freedom, that's your school administrators, that's your teachers. That's where those decisions should be made. And part of being a constitutionalist is recognizing my fellow Americans' right to make what I believe are bad decisions. We have 435 congressmen in D.C. and 100 senators. There's only about, I'm telling you, there's only about 50 or 60 of us that are hardcore, principled constitutionalists. We don't concern ourselves with the establishment, with either party. We're focused on constitutionalist rights, freedoms, and protections, period. We serve we the people. There's 50 or 60 of us. I wish there was 535 of us. To me, those communities made bad decisions. But as a constitutionalist, I support that community's right to make bad decisions. I hope that they learn, and end up sending more constitutionalist principled servants to D.C. that will actually work on behalf of the citizens that they're sworn to serve. But we shall move forward as a nation, and I will stand against actions that made by our governor or any other governor. I mean, listen, I respect our governor. We absolutely have if he has a problem, I'll help him with it. If on the way home, he's broke down in one of his limousines, we'll stop and help him. You'll hear that joke. So tell Higgins I don't have a limousine. The point is we respect each other. Now, I'm going to disagree vehemently, if he makes decisions that I believe oppress the freedoms of the citizens of Louisiana. And mandates of any kind. Vaccination mandates, we could be mandated to have a needle put in your arm. Come on, man, that's really pushing things, isn't it? I introduced a bill that made it a violation of federal law for a government entity or a private business to mandate a medical procedure against the will of that citizen. The Vaccine Freedom Act, and it removes the word religious from the strongly held religious conviction clause that's in the law right now, because it's none of anybody's business how I arrived at a strongly held conviction, and I shouldn't have to lie. You've heard some of your fellow Americans say, well, just tell them you have a strongly held religious conviction against the vaccine. Look, I'm not against you getting the vaccine. I'm supporting you having the freedom to make that choice yourself. And it's nobody's business how you arrived at a strongly held conviction. It shouldn't have to be a religious conviction. You know, I didn't go to Mass to determine that they're not praying novenas in Italy about the vax. If I have a strongly held conviction, that should be enough. So the law that I've introduced makes it a federal crime for a government entity or a private business to mandate a medical procedure. And a vaccine to penetrate your skin, that's a medical procedure. Makes it a federal crime to mandate a medical procedure to a government entity or private employer. And it removes the word conviction from strongly held religious conviction. It's a strongly held conviction. So I'm doing what I can. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
I am extremely concerned that I'm witnessing the end of America as I know it and as I love it. We seem to be speeding towards socialism with frightening rapidity. I am terrified that my kids are not going to have the same kind of life, and everybody's kids here, that I want them all to have a better life, not a worse. The dysfunction of Washington is off the chain. What are you doing on behalf of us and all Americans to try to save this country for our kids? And what can we do to try to help save this country?
What are you saving it from? What are you talking about?
Thank you, ma'am. Well, let me address the question. I certainly recognize the passion and spirit behind the question. Many American families are very concerned about the direction of our country. And if you have experience with nations that you've observed become socialist at the government level, where you have seizures of private properties and things like nationalized industries, seizure, say, oil refineries, things like that by the government. If you have interaction with people that live in China, which like to present itself as a beautiful, progressive nation with great freedoms and happiness and joy. But if you go into the country, you'll find an incredible oppression of freedoms and just slavery. Absolutely. Slavery right now, 21st century in China on a very large scale. Venezuela, what a beautiful country. My first wife was my college sweetheart. She was from Venezuela. When I met her, she didn't speak English, I didn't speak Spanish. We were happily married for a long time. Now, I learned to speak Spanish very quickly. Padre Corazon, from my heart. And she was at LSU, I was at LSU, she was in the ELOP program, the English Language Orientation program. We fell in love at first sight. Like something from a storybook. We We were together for a long time. She was an amazing woman. She was the mother of my first child. She was killed in a car crash long ago, and we lost our daughter as well. But I love Venezuela. It was a free nation. This was before the election of socialist President Chavez. I spent a lot of time in Venezuela. Beautiful nation. They were doing well, very well. This was the 80s. Okay, but I watched that country dissolve from within. The largest city in Venezuela is Caracas. Listen to what I'm about to tell you now. There are no pets left in Caracas. You know why? Somebody tell me. They've eaten them. Listen to the concern, this lady's heart, the spirit. And many Americans get it. You can vote your way into socialism, but you're going to have to shoot your way out. Across the world, the example I just shared is accurate. So, as the freest, strongest, most beautiful, most bonded, anointed nation on God's earth, as the American family that we are, all of us, woven together, one, united, regardless of our differences, we're one, man. It's a beautiful thing, what we are. So we should be responsive. We should have our radar out regarding any kind of socialist leans in our government. And we should be concerned for our children and grandchildren. This is a part of who we are and what we are. Is to maintain a comfortable insulation between our freedoms that have been bequeathed upon us by generations of patriots past, by their lives and blood and sacrifice. That nation that we love, that we are, we should absolutely keep a deep insulation between who we are and what we are and any kind of socialist lean and tendency or restrictions and oppressions of our freedoms and our rights. So I feel your spirit, ma'am. What I can tell you is that I am a constitutionalist. I am an Army veteran. I work for you. I'm a we the people guy. And I will give my last life's blood in defense of your freedoms and rights and your constitutional protections, along with every other family in South Louisiana and by extension all of America. I say that by God, by my Savior and Lord Jesus Christ. I swear my last life's blood in defense of the freedom of the citizens of America.
We have about 5 more questions, so I'm going to try to roll them through.
You want me to be quick? You've been talking to my sisters.
Thank you for coming, Congress. Recently, President Biden's infrastructure bill got approved in the U.S. House, U.S. Senate by bipartisan support. And if and when it reached the House floor, how will you be supporting it? And if not, what will you be proposing?
It's an intelligent and timely question to get directly and bluntly to the answer, and then we'll discuss the whys. I'm a hard no against it, was referred to as the bipartisan infrastructure bill that passed House. 1.2 trillion, 19 Republicans supported, all the Democrats in the Senate, and the bill is coming to the House floor for debate and vote. I will be a hard no, and I will debate with all my passion and power and intellect against the bill. Ultimately, the bill will very likely pass. And it will very likely pass against my debate and against what I believe is the best interest of the country we can discuss why. There's very little actual infrastructure in the so-called infrastructure bill. Hold on, you answer the question, and I'll be happy to answer you. Well, it's not about Mr. Miller, huh?
You're right, not, we brothers.
So, most of us, we would identify infrastructure as roads, bridges, airports, maritime ports, flood management system, flood mitigation, things like that, right? Infrastructure. Brick, steel.
What are you doing?
Can I tell you, and in the 1.2 trillion, that about 80% of the money dedicated in this bill had nothing to do with what you and I would describe as infrastructure. They call it an infrastructure bill, but it's not. In the contracts, listen, this bill's gonna pass, so America's gonna find out. You'll see. You have contractors right now that you know and work with to say, well, maybe we'll get someone else's job. You won't get those jobs. You know why? Because you're not an East Coast or West Coast Green New Deal contractor. That's why. There'll be out-of-state license plates all over. Building something that would have cost, $500,000, gonna cost $5 million. Could have been done by any one of a dozen contractors right there around where that project is being built. Not one of them gonna be certified and qualified for the Green New Deal permits and requirements to build that road or that new construction project that even resembles the kind of infrastructure that we're calling infrastructure. And many things in the bill have nothing to do with the infrastructure. I'll be voting against it. Ultimately, it'll pass. They'll call it bipartisan because some of the most extreme Democrats to the left won't vote for it, but they'll replace Madam Speaker Pelosi will very likely ultimately manage to get a majority of votes by pulling Republicans out of swing districts, purple districts, and them representing districts that would generally support the bill as a very liberal bill. But it'll be a bill that I oppose. Ultimately, it'll pass. We have a formula in our office. We stand on principle, but our policy is based on the law and reality. So, for instance, with earmarks, we debated against the return of earmarks as a funding mechanism within the House of Representatives. We debated very heavily against earmarks as what they call community funding projects, right? They changed the name of the earmark. We haven't had them for a decade in D.C. and Congress. They've been returned this year. I debated against them, but ultimately, earmarks were passed. My side lost the debate. They had to vote in both parties. It's a rule, not a law. The Democrats all supported it, and enough Republicans supported it. You had to return of earmarks. So now it becomes a funding mechanism within the House of Representatives, and I serve with the people. So I've got access to funding mechanisms that are written into the rules and the law of the House of Representatives, which means although I debated against earmarks on principle, I participate in them because it's a mechanism that I need. It's within the rules and the law. So when they pass the infrastructure bill, if there's something from Louisiana, we'll get it. I'm going to do everything in my power to try and negotiate a defeat for that bill. Hope that answered the question honestly for the gentleman that presented.
Yeah, we're gonna move it forward, but I'm gonna have you
Beat it
stay
up.
late in a minute. You're gonna have to stay late.
Well, y'all run me out of here a little bit. My man said, hurry it up,
His
baby.
second question was, what are you gonna do? What you gonna propose?
No.
But his second question was, what is he gonna propose in lieu of his no
Our
vote?
infrastructure
What
bill
you
is on the
gonna put
table.
out there for
I answered your
us?
question. Our infrastructure bill is on the table since 2017. It was $500 billion of hard federal investment on very strict parameter, actual infrastructure projects, the roads, bridges, airports, maritime ports, flood management systems, irrigation systems, and flood mitigation systems, and coastal restoration systems. Hard infrastructure since 2017, $500 billion, that's $500,000 of federal funding, matched by $2 trillion of private investment. Who negotiated that? President Trump. We wrote the law in 2017. We presented it, we had no support from the other side of the aisle, didn't go anywhere. They asked for the truth, I gave it to them. You can tell when I'm speaking the truth. The lady asked what my alternative was. What do I support? I can tell you, we've been on record since 2017. Supported the infrastructure bill I just described.
I just want to invest in your private.
What actual bridges and roads and use private money.
I thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I've been, I grew up in North Lake Charles.
Still growing up.
And still growing up. In a few months, I'm gonna be 60 just like you. But my question to you tonight is, with everything that's going on, after Hurricane Laura, what are we doing? What will we do to get affordable housing for these people that wants to come back home? And no one's doing anything to fix their housing. I've rode around. I've been gone for about 25 years. I've rode around for the past 2.5 years. And after this hurricane, it's just sickening to see how people is living these days. Where's the money going? In Louisiana, in Lake Charles, to bring our people back home, because we have over 10,000 people that is saying that they are not coming back to Lake Charles because Lake Charles is not funding the housing as they should. So we need to know.
Ask Nick Collins. Where your mayor?
That's all the questions, it's on all of our minds and hearts.
Where your mayor at?
So let's jump into it.
He's not here tonight.
Let's jump into it. A lot of the properties that you see that nothing has happened around Calcasieu Parish, primarily, but also in Cameron, we see nothing has happened at that property. The roof is still off, the debris is still in the yard. Most of those properties have been abandoned. Most of those properties, the private properties, have been abandoned. So you have ownership issues, ma'am, regarding many private properties, including businesses, that the owners have walked away. Or you had renters staying there, they lost everything, they split. They're renting somewhere else, or they're living somewhere else, they left that property. And the owner is an absentee owner, they're waiting for insurance, which is in itself a serious battle with insurance companies. There's a great deal of unrighteousness and criminal fraud happening. There's been some arrests made. My office is involved in some of those oversight investigations. And we've been deeply communicating with the Attorney General's office and the Insurance Commissioner's office and the governor's folks, very concerned about insurance behavior. But the point is that many of the properties that you see, they're injurious to the eye. You see zero progress since Hurricane Laura. Many of those are private properties that have been abandoned.
But is anybody trying to reach out to these people that has abandoned these properties?
Yes, surely your local and state government officials trying to identify the thousands of property owners. But let's get to the folks that can get help, want help, deserve help, and to have access to help right now. I wanted to touch on the property because you mentioned that, and I feel your heart. It hurts my eyes too. You know, to see, but like no movement at that property for a year now since Laura. And so I wanted to get to that. With folks that live here now and want to stay here, trying to stand back up, that need to access available help, you have a tremendous amount of money been delivered from the federal government to the state that's accessible through the government portals. our power's back, our internet's back. The best way to go is online. You can do it by paper, but the best way to apply is online. But an individual property owner, whether it's for your business or your residence, this doesn't replace private insurance now. But your government programs that are federally funded and state operated are completely accessible now. There's a lot of money in those programs to help individual property owners recover from the storm. We have moved the percentages of participation from 75% to 90% to 100% for storm recovery from your local government. So to put that in context, if something costs $10 million, let's say, just use a round number for, say, debris cleanup and say sulfur. And that means the city of Sulphur would have to spend $2.5 million for debris pickup. But if we moved in, the federal government would pay $7.5 million. So if we move that needle to 100%, then that saves the city of Sulphur $2.5 million. So if they had that money, if they were going to have to spend on debris removal, they could spend it on other services providing for their citizens. So we have successfully moved that needle at the federal level with the help of my congressional colleagues, 75 to 90 to 100 in most cases.
Just to complete what I was saying, okay, you're saying that money is allocated to Lake Charles to help
To the state of Louisiana
to the state
for
of
recovery
Louisiana.
from the declared disasters of Laura, Delta, and ice storm, et
And you're
cetera.
saying that the people can go online, okay?
Get access through, now there's some direct access to federal assistance as well. Our email address, I'm sorry, our website has a link that links all the government services that an individual citizen or business owner can access to seek help from the state or federal government. And I asked for, is our website on my card?
Can someone from the staff provide the email address?
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave a stack of my cards at clayhagan.house.gov. You go to our website and you'll find it very easy to navigate. You can find all the portals for online access for state and government assistance. And I have my district director here, John Chotan, will leave his cards as well. Listen, we're accessible, we work for you. These are some of the individual cases that we can open and look into. But generally speaking, we're continuing to battle for heavy funding, and we've delivered heavy funding to the state to be administered by the state to respond to the named and declared disasters of Laura and Delta, which were the most heavily, felt storms. Ice storm as well, but
Congressman Higgins, I want to do a time check with you because I have about 7 more questions and I just want to make sure that people get their
Yeah, I'm good.
opportunities. But you good?
I'm good, I'll work for you. I'm fully recovered from COVID, by the way. Y'all know that. I had COVID, I almost killed me. I'm telling you, there was a day there when I wasn't sure y'all were gonna have to tolerate me much longer. My wife, my son, and I got COVID about a month ago, the Delta variant, and I've never been knocked down that hard in my life. And I'm fully recovered now. My suits fit better.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
The question is, your Constitution is down, but we have, there was laws passed that a poor person couldn't drive to his job if he didn't have insurance. Hey, there was no government, nobody jumping up when poor people are struggling to make it. You know what I'm saying? And you proposed a law that would undo vaccinations that kids been getting for 30 years. I mean, kids have been required to be vaccinated since I was in school. I know I got some white hair here, but you introduced a law that would undo all that? The law that you said you introduced. No, let me finish. Yeah, I'm gonna finish. One more. We all Americans, and this disease is killing everybody, not just some of us. I mean, when do we come together as Americans to fight the real enemy? And the real enemy is a disease that is literally killing people. And you in the community that's been way more affected by everybody else. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, the thing of it is we gonna be Americans part of the time? You know, America never was perfect, like you say. You know, it's to build a more perfect union. You know what I'm saying? But do we bring everybody with us, or do we just leave half of us in the background?
Where's the we the people?
Yes.
Roger that. So, sir, thank you for your question, and I'd like to respond directly to you. Because you're my brother, we're children of God, so I'm going to answer your question solid. The law that I introduced makes it a federal crime for a government entity or business to command you to submit to a medical procedure against your will. Now, the vaccinations that we're discussing, I'm not against you getting the vaccination. Here's the reality. It's an experimental vaccine.
That's right.
All right? Now, I was in the Army. Sir, if you'd like me to answer your question, I'll answer your question.
Okay.
I allowed you to speak, and I'm trying to be polite. I'm going to answer your question. I was in the Army. I stood in the line. Well, I don't know, at the time, we probably got a dozen vaccines. We didn't have any idea what we were getting. Well, you better just say yes, sir. You don't have to, you stand in line, you get your vaccines. Well, let me share with you a federal law. When you join the Army, many of you know, you're no longer protected by the Constitution of the United States. You fall under UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. You no longer have protections and freedoms of a regular American citizen when you're in the service. You're no longer governed and protected by that. You're governed and protected by the laws of the UCMJ. And the UCMJ, well, you have to have that. I was saying you have individual expression of freedoms, a soldier showing up in whatever he feels like wearing that day, because that's his expression. Or he doesn't feel like following an order because it's contrary to something he feels. Obviously, you have to have uniformity within the uniformed services. This includes compliance with vaccines, but not experimental vaccines. Even in the Army, it's against the law through UCMJ for the Department of Defense to command a soldier to receive an experimental medical procedure or vaccine. You know why that law came into effect? Because of Tuskegee. Because of Tuskegee Airmen. That's right.
Tuskegee.
You have protections as an American citizen regarding your freedoms when it comes to what you believe is best for your medical decision. Now, if I take a job at a plant or anywhere else, they can tell me what time to show up. They can tell me what kind of boots to wear. If I have to wear safety glasses, if I have to wear a hard hat, if I have to back into my parking spot. All my duties, you walk on this line of the yellow line, not that side of the yellow line. Everything, everywhere, they can mandate. But we draw a line with you putting a needle in my arm. If you're going to mandate a medical procedure, I got a problem with that. Contrary to the wishes of that citizen, I have an issue with that. I don't have any problem with folks getting a vaccine. In fact, we've said from the beginning, it should be accessible and it should be free. And that's been permanently my position on vaccines. It should be accessible to you and it should be free. You want the vaccine, get it. You want to wear a mask, wear it. I don't have any problem, I'm not an anti-masker. I don't have a problem with your mask. I have a problem with the oppression of your freedoms.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Jeremy Stein with Stein Lumber. Thank you for being here, Congressman.
Yes, sir.
More importantly, thank you. Glad to see that you're healthy and your family's healthy.
Thank you, sir.
Whether we all agree with you or not in this room, you and your family have been in our prayers. Lord knows we need you fighting for us in DC. So,
Thank you, sir.
as you know, as president for Alliance for Positive Growth this year, we wrote your office regarding the disaster relief bill. $3 billion of course is the request from Governor Edwards. $2 billion of that $3 billion is for crop and timber losses. The remaining $1 billion is for housing and hazard mitigation. Thank you again, your office. Y'all have been very communicative. Ward Cormier, good guy from Welsh, he's in DC, and I just want to let you know he's been doing a good job communicating with our office, providing great feedback on the status. But just for everyone in this room, and I know Mayor Hunter and others around the community in Southwest Louisiana have been asking about the leading for disaster relief that we desperately need from the federal government. Could you just let us know sort of what the status is now and what you're hearing from the White House and from Congress and others?
Yes, sir. When you say pleading for disaster relief, what you're referring to, I believe, just to clarify for the audience, is the supplemental disaster bill.
That's right.
Okay, so a supplemental disaster funding bill commonly follows within the fiscal year, depending upon when the disaster struck, a named disaster that hits our nation, whether it's wildfires on the West Coast or hurricanes on the East Coast or the Gulf Coast of Florida. Supplemental disaster funding bills follow a particular sort of chain of events. You have a natural disaster that's declared, and the alphabet agencies that are tasked with responding to that disaster respond. Okay? And they spend a lot of money during the course of their response. And as the administrators, the bean counters in that alphabet agency look at their expenditures and their existing budget resources from that fiscal year, and they see that they're approaching an end of their monies, they submit a request for supplemental funding for their agency or their department through the executive branch, which goes through the President of the United States, obviously. You have FEMA, Department of Homeland Security, Housing, Urban Development, whatever. You have a tremendous expenditure because of a natural disaster. You had a budget that was appropriated for your fiscal year that you're in. You're going through that budget faster than anticipated because of the disaster. You can see you're going to run out of money. So you submit a request for supplemental funding through your chain of command, which is the President of the United States. And the President of the United States requests of Congress a supplemental disaster funding bill. And Congress always approves those requests. What you have right now is that Laura and Delta happened during a year where trillions of dollars were appropriated and delivered to the alphabet agencies under the various huge COVID response bills. They delivered so much money, deficit spending money, to the alphabet agencies that the agencies which would normally, good sir, where'd you go? There you go. The agencies that would normally, they've been responding to these natural disasters, including here, they're not close to running out of money. So the administrators of those agencies have never requested supplemental funding because they're not running out of the funding they have. Why? Because there's no way they could spend the money that was delivered to them for COVID. So they never requested to the President of the United States. Now we have, and the governor has. The governor wrote a letter in January to President Biden. We immediately supported that letter. Delegation-wide, every member of the delegation supported the letters that we have led from our office, supporting the governor's request to the president for the president to request of Congress a supplemental disaster funding bill. They have not done that. The president has not submitted that request to Congress, nor the Madam Speaker Pelosi, back channel or formally or anywhere else, because the agencies have not asked for any money because they're not close to running out of money. But here's the issue. We dug deep into this, man, months ago. What's one of the greatest benefits of a supplemental disaster funding bill if it's not the supplemental funding itself? And the answer is access to that money. And our research, I said, why? Why is there ease of access greater out of supplemental disaster funding monies that you didn't have in the normal funding from that fiscal year for the agency, the alphabet agency or department that was responding in the first place? And the answer is that there's usually a dip in available funding, which is what triggers a request for supplemental funding, and therefore there's like a built-in restriction of access to those monies through the normal mechanisms for federal assistance or through federally funded state assistance for the recovery from a natural disaster. So we looked at those mechanisms, good sir. We looked at the access mechanisms, and we have officially and back channel requested that the executive, the President of the United States, President Biden, use his authority as the executive to just instruct his secretaries to activate the access mechanisms, even if they don't give us supplemental money itself, because the agencies are flush with cash because of COVID, as I've described. Give us the access mechanisms that would normally be associated with supplemental disaster recovery bill funding, so that the citizens of Southwest Louisiana can access the monies that's already there. And the state of Louisiana is doing its best, by the way. They have their own bureaucratic difficulties delivering and dispersing the monies that we've already delivered. So the answer is we have battled for and continue to fight for, officially and unofficially, the supplemental disaster funding. But we have also come to understand the mechanisms that have existed for a long time on how you get to a supplemental disaster funding bill and why. And the very unique thing about the year of COVID was the trillions of dollars that were delivered under COVID bills to the very agencies that normally would be requesting that money. So we support ease of access that can be done by the executive in D.C. and the executive in Baton Rouge. And we're battling for just that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you so
Yes,
much,
sir.
Congressman Higgins. We've been through a lot, and we've seen a lot, and 2 storms, ice storm and flooding. My concerns is for the people of Calcasieu Parish and the city of Lake Charles. We need help. If we would have been any other large metropolitan cities such as Houston, New Orleans, California, we would have probably made national news. But nobody knows about what's going on right here in Calcasieu Parish and Lake Charles. We need help. We've got people right now that are being put out their homes because they can't afford rent. We've got people right now that have contacted FEMA, have been denied. FEMA can only come and do a visual site. You can't see the damage of some of the people's homes that we're dealing with that's been displaced. And that's, the question was later, people are leaving, that's why. Because we can't get help. And I guess my question to you is, what can you do to expedite those type things so that people can see some kind of hope? There's no hope right now. You look at people, they're just devastated because nobody's coming to the rescue. This is probably the 2nd meeting we've had. I want to commend Councilman Craig Marks. Him and I put together a meeting for the Brentwood area, which was hit hard, flooding. And, you know, we don't know what's going on locally. We're not getting any feedback. We can't understand why things are moving so slow. And I mean, people tell me that there's been money that have been sent to the city of Lake Charles, Calcasieu Parish. Where is it? If we have 2 major storms, I've been an elected official for 18 years. I know a little bit about this. If we've had 2 major storms, why wasn't things done before this flooding occurred? Not that we could see it coming, but why wasn't things done prior to that? So that we could get some kind of help where people wouldn't have to worry about this. My wife and I have lived in our home for 32 years. It's never flooded. FEMA deemed us 8 years ago that it was a non-flood area. We had a foot of water in our house. Nobody can give answers to what's going on. I applaud you for being here. I do. But the thing is, people want answers. People are struggling. And people can't see any daylight. They say that there were monies allocated to the city of Lake Charles. I need to know where it went. If there's monies that was dedicated to the parish, we need to know where that money is, because right now, they got people in this room living in trailers. My wife and I have been in an apartment for a year. And you know what? On the other side of things, I could see then as an elected official what people were telling me. But not really understanding it because I wasn't in that position. Guess what? I'm in it. And I want to let the people know, is there help on the way? And I know, Councilman, let me say this. You're the only one that's come down here to talk to us. And I want you to know, no matter what this room may say or the views that we may have, that's life. People are going to have different opinions on what they feel about things in life. And that's okay, wearing a mask or not wearing it. I'm not all about that. I just want to live.
Yes.
But the thing is, I applaud you for taking the time to see the needs of what we need. Because nobody else took the time to see what people need right here. And we are struggling.
Yes.
We are struggling, Councilman. And I want to thank Fitz and the Chamber for getting you here.
Thank you.
Because this is the only meeting we have.
Yes. Thank you.
And it's sad to say, but we've got elected officials right now. I haven't heard one speak yet. I'm disappointed in a lot of things, but that's for another meeting. But you know what? Sometimes you want things, but you better be careful of what you ask for. Thank you, Councilman.
How you trying to act like you with family for real? Why you playing like this?
That's what I love about America.
Yes, that was powerful right there.
A man stood up,
Yes,
spoke his mind, and shared his heart.
yes, yes,
That's one of my 700,000 bosses right there.
yes. Yes,
That just addressed me.
yes, thank you. And thank you.
Guess what? I'm paying attention, bro.
Yes. Woo.
I'm paying attention. When an American citizen speaks their mind, we should all, you're damn right, be paying attention.
Yes, yes.
When our neighbors are suffering, that's not a time to look at your phone and say, I'm not answering that call.
Yes.
That's a time to open your heart.
That's right.
I don't know why God told me to roll up my sleeve, but now it's time to say to roll up your sleeve. And to help. So here's my commitment to you. Good sir. Where'd you go? You stay in the gym, you're visible. Here's my commitment to you specifically. We will share with you every penny. We'll identify every penny. And I'm not talking about next week. I'm talking about tonight.
Okay.
I'll give you a breakdown of every penny that's been delivered. We'll give it to you in paper and digitally. Showtime has in my binder on the dash of your chart, brother. Oh. Every penny has been delivered to what program? Further, in the data I'm going to share with you, good sir, and I ask you to share with your constituents, your neighbors, your community, the people that you love. Because by God, I'm supposed to, I work for you. You ask me a question, you deserve an answer. Where's the money? We're going to show you. Now, let us not, let me pull my spirit in, because I don't want to cast disparagement and blame In fact, it's not my nature. I prefer to accept responsibility even for the failure perhaps of others, if I feel like I'm in a position to make a difference. And I am in a position to make a difference because I'm your congressman. And I care about you and love you. So, we'll identify the monies that have been dispersed, and we'll identify digitally the portals for you to access to research yourself, and it's public data. And within the data I'm going to share with you, digitally and by paper, it describes money that's accessible for individual citizens and businesses, either directly to the federal government or to the state of programs that are funded by federal monies that has been delivered, 1.4 billion since Laura. Again, a billion's 1,000 million, it's a lot of money. And beyond that, let me tell you, I'm describing these portals like it's easy. It ain't easy. You got to have skills to actually. Thank you, sir. There you go. Got a hanger right there. So, if any of our family has difficulty navigating through the portals that I'm identifying, you're not going to find our office saying, "Oh, well, we gave you the portal. You know, good luck with that." We'll help you. We'll sit down with you. We'll meet with your business, your elected officials, your community, your neighborhood, and we'll walk through applications with you. We'll help. We have helped in hundreds and hundreds of individual cases like that. There is no reason why Southwest Louisiana was ignored by the mainstream media for the disasters that we suffered. Had we been, you're exactly right, had we been the West Coast of Florida, and send this, if you don't mind, she'll get the gentleman's email address so that we can email them all. There's no reason why the mainstream media ignored Louisiana, except for the fact that the mainstream media is the mainstream media. And sometimes they pretend to care about Louisiana, but they don't. The Louisiana delegation is united. Every congressman and both senators, when it comes to disaster recovery, there's no such thing as Republican, a Democrat, a moderate, a conservative, a constitutionalist. We're all Louisiana. And the Louisiana delegation, as a delegation, is actually quite a powerful element within Congress because we're small, but we are united. If you look at your Texas delegation, it's huge. You have a lot of money. Your California delegation, but they're divided. They battle amongst each other.
Congressman Higgins, can I have him explain this and then have your next question?
Go ahead. There's too much detail for me to jump into, given our time constraints. Well, we're gonna meet further. We're gonna deliver you this information tonight, and then we're happy to sit down with you personally because you're a good man. You speak your mind. You have courage, and God bless you. I love you and respect you. Yes, ma'am.
I also want to thank you for coming here, but I want to say that I think you're about a year too late. We have invited you here before, and you declined to come. But since then, I have been, let me give you a little picture of what I'm doing. Every day, I get up, and I go to these people's houses, and I go to these people's FEMA trailers who have nowhere to go. They don't know where they're gonna go. We have people who don't have jobs. We have people who are not as educated as you said, who may be able to get that job at their bridge, and if they're not educated enough, and if they're not qualified, then they're not gonna get that. I don't know where the training could be. You're talking about a bridge 2 years from now, so why can't they be trained to work on that bridge? I don't know. But we don't have those jobs here. And we have people with a medium income of about $800 to about $1,200, especially our people who are living on fixed incomes. So when I go into these people's houses, and I go to a woman's house who she's been living there, when I go to this 91-year-old's house, and she's been living there for 70 years, and they gave her $11,000 to completely fix her house with price gouging the way it is, to the point where it's not even just price gouging on housing equipment anymore, but they price gouging on our food. I can't even go buy a pair of shoes that I could have bought before the storms. And we're not talking about, Mr. Gidry said, the ice storm, the flood storm. I'm talking about all the way back to Laura. And I'm not asking you about the money because I know where the money is. I know the money didn't come until months later. And I don't understand why it took so long for us to get money over here. But right now, what we need is time, because we can't afford to. I am sleeping on my mother's couch. I've been there since August of last year. It's been a year. I can't afford to even go in my house because I can't walk into my house. Because if I walk in my house, I'm going to go through the floor. I can't afford to pay for any of the materials that before the storm, a piece of plywood cost $7 and now it's $35. So what I need to know is, are y'all paying attention to what GoSell and FEMA is doing? And where is our time going to be? Because we have people walking on eggshells. We have people that the mental health resources that we have here are none. And the people are just completely full of anxiety, full of depression, and it's nobody there. It's like, what do I tell these people that you have 6 months to get yourself together? And they don't even know where their next meal coming from. They don't know where their next check coming from. And FEMA is telling them, we're gonna pull these things, we're gonna pull these manufactured homes out of here, or y'all gonna pay for it. How am I gonna pay with $800? How am I, a 68-year-old woman, making $800 on a fixed income, pay my mortgage, and pay FEMA for their trailer because I can't go into my house because it's dangerous? And I'm happy you're here today so that you can listen to us, so that you can hear us, so that you can please go back and tell these people, give us some kind of recognition, somebody pay attention to us, and then we're not just up here crying and begging nobody, because it sounds like our cries are just going up into the air. Amen. So I'm so glad you're here today. So at least I know I have a face, somebody that I can talk to and say, please give us some time. Somebody please do something about the price gouging. Somebody please come here and help, especially these older people, these vulnerable people, the people who can't do for themselves. Because me, I'm gonna get my house fixed. And it doesn't even make any sense that at this point that we're having to call lawyers and attorneys and call the insurance commission and all this other stuff. This stuff should be done. So I'll thank you for being here and thank you for listening to what I have to say.
Okay, one moment before you respond. There's a comment, and then if you can respond. Please. Okay, then she just has a quick comment.
I just have it's a message.
But the young lady that just spoke.
Yeah, no, I want you to take time to answer her question. So she just said she want an amen, and she gonna sit
well,
down.
my message is from above. Everybody has so many concerns, and there are cries everywhere. But there is one who hears them. There is one. You have 700,000 bosses. We all have one creator. And he says that if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sins and I will heal their land. And so there is something every single one of us can do. He said what to do. And no one can stop us from doing that one thing. He's been disregarded, he has been dismissed, but we can bring him back by getting on our knees and calling out his name. And then you, sir, will be able to do above and beyond anything you think that you can do, because he will make the way for you to get that work done.
Amen, girl.
Ma'am, thank you for your comment and your words from Scripture. I stand in the Word every day. That's the only path that I can follow in my journey in life, because I don't have the power as a man to perform to the standards of a child of God. I must seek the wisdom of the Word and the Spirit of the Scripture. So thank you for sharing it. You, good lady, but you say that you have more than the hearing of my ears. You have the compassion of my heart. And I not only hear you, I feel you. And we're happy to sit down with you. I apologize that I haven't attended a specific meeting before. My schedule is very full, and I work very hard in service to the constituents across 10 parishes. And sometimes it's quite challenging to get something on the schedule. But I'm not going to say I do my best, because it's really not me. I'm following the path that the Lord has illuminated for me. And I attempt for that to be my guide. And that includes me being humble and receiving your words with an open heart. And I do have some specific answers for you. Some time constraints. Some of the things are very complex. You touched on a lot of things. There's state and local stuff and federal things that have to work together in unison for an individual family to recover. You have variances of response from private insurance to NFIP regarding flood restorations. And there's dozens of federal and state programs that can intersect for one family, for one story of recovery after a series of named and declared natural disasters. Now, I make no excuses for these complexities. I'm just intellectually, it's identifying the fact that it can be quite complex. And I heard you, I feel you, and would like the opportunity to sit down with you and share with you, because I have the feeling that, like this gentleman here, if we share with you, we feel like you'll share with others some of these answers. Is that true? So if I have your blessing to schedule a further meeting, we can jump into some details of what you touched upon. But you certainly did impacted my heart. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Congressman.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
We are delighted to have you here tonight. This should have long time happened, but I understand, because I watch TV every morning when y'all in session. I watch you very closely. I appreciate what you say. You love this country. You love our people. You're from Louisiana. We all love each other. We all in here tonight because we all in trouble. Some people got little trouble, some people got big trouble. But the worst thing, Congressman Higgins, is what happened to my people. The boundaries here is considered North Lake Charles. FEMA redlined my people. They did nothing for my people. You know when those trailers start coming in? Mary came on my post. My city councilman said, Mr. Reeser, we got to move quick. I said, I got it written up. We wrote a letter to Attorney General Gordon, and we asked for a criminal investigation on FEMA for what happened to our people. That is unreal. This is not America. The people coming from the border is treated better than our children and us. Wait, let me tell you something else. Not only FEMA needs to be reeled in. That is too big. give Louisiana our money. When something comes, we know every home what is in it, and we see about our people. You got to bring in Social Security. They out of the corral. I'm telling you. It's a lot that people don't know what has happened to us. And it's unacceptable for a woman with 7 children and herself as 8 people, then close doors, she find out she's pregnant. I told her that's a gift God gives you. I'm going to help you. And you know what Congress we needed? In those 7 children, there was a special needs child in there. That is unacceptable here. My grandson is special, but he graduated a Banner Roll student at Sam Houston High. I put him through every program there was, and I help any children that need to be helped. Children is my heart. I don't see color, I see people. Let me tell you this. Something is going to happen unless we, the people, stand up and be heard. Let me say this. Let me tell you this. I have sympathy for everybody. I have a 5-bedroom house. I would have rather taken those children out that car and bring them in my home. At least they would be halfway safe. My home not really finished. But remember this. Somebody got to stand up. And we in here tonight, we should stand up. Let me say this. President Biden is a special needs child when he was small. He studied. My grandson told me, Granny, he got a disability. Look, he's studying. But somebody helped him to go through it. The people that hurt it the most in this hurricane that has nothing to do with you is our governor. That's who we got to go after. He did not care. He did not care. And I'm going to tell you something else. The special needs children, the disabled people, and the senior citizens, we the one caught it. But I thank you for being here tonight. I watch y'all every morning on C-SPAN, and I watch exactly what you say. Your heart is with your people, and I appreciate that. And if there's anything I can do, when you need some help, call me. But whatever I tell you here tonight, it happened here in North Lake Charles. Thank you.
Before you respond, I want to try to get in.
God bless you, man. Thank you
That's okay to do.
Thank you
I understand. I understand.
for so grizzled old servant spirit. This is exactly how God works. I didn't know what wisdoms I'd be exposed to tonight, or what words would penetrate my heart and my spirit, but the Lord knew. And he brought us here, so God bless you. You're the example of what Americans should hope to be. A passionate and caring and determined and courageous American woman. God bless you. Thank you for being you. Your words penetrate me. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Higgins, I'm glad that you came. I want to thank Kevin. The people that you were talking about, I'm one of them. I know. Now, all I'm asking for is direction, and how can I get the help that I need?
I've been displaced 6 times, and I don't believe I'm gonna be staying where I am long. I hurt, but I'm going to keep on moving until somebody can help me. I've been right around the country from here, raised all my children here. I'm trying to get back in my home. I just had to leave the 6th place I had to go to. 6 people. I mean, their heart was out to me to let me stay with them. I've done everything I could do to help myself. Now I need help. So give me the direction. Give me where I need to go. and get the help that I need.
Elizabeth, get this good lady's contact data, please.
Yes, Lord.
Thank you for having the courage to speak.
Okay, we just have a few more people. Elizabeth?
Ma'am, there's a young lady gonna come sit next to you, she's gonna get your contact data. We're gonna contact you tomorrow, we're gonna walk you through the programs that you have access to, and we're gonna help you specifically.
I want to thank God for you, Congressman Higgins, for coming. We hardly have anyone that really come to be concerned about us, really, truly, that I know of, none. Okay, nobody cares about Lake Charles. And we are really suffering. My story is almost similar to hers. I had a tree fell in my home. I have no ceilings. I have no, I have floors, but my house was shifted. My plumbing, my electricity, all is messed up. And I have gone to FEMA over and over again, at least 4 times, giving the same information. And no results, no help. And I was in New Orleans when the storm first came. And I was there for like a month, and I made my mind up to come see what was happening with my home. And when I got back, it was a disaster. I mean, it was like a war had taken place, you know, on my street. Everybody's homes were messed up. But we tried to come together, and we tried to go to meetings and find out some answers to where's the money. They promised us money, FEMA promises money. I have never received any money. I received a little money to patch my roof. My roof is still leaking because I didn't get enough. But anyway, I just keep praying to God that He fix things for all of us in our city. Really all over the world, because people is hurting all over this world. I do know that God is sick of us turning our backs on Him, for sure. And I beg the people in this room to please, let's come together and be honest and do the right thing toward each other. You know, look out for one another if you can. Do what you can do, you know, for each other, white, black, blue, I don't care what color. It's no color no more, because we all suffer all over this world. We look at that news, it's nothing but suffering. So we got to come together and help one another. We really, truly do. My son was evicted. I heard you say that a lot of people were left their rental places. A lot of people were evicted. They just evicted them for no reason, just had nowhere to go. Thank God I had that roof sofa what I got, because I refused to go and live in a motel or something because I found crack pipes in my home. And I'm at the age where I cannot start all over again, paying no house note or rent. Rent is so unreal, you know. And so, you know, and we have so many displaced people that want to come back home but have no means and no resources to do what they need to do to help themselves. Also, they're putting signs on their homes, wanting to tear them down. And these poor people don't even know what's going on because they displaced somewhere else.
Are you staying in your home right now?
Trying to, yes.
Do you have power?
I have electricity, but it's
Okay.
messed up too.
Your first step towards your journey to complete recovery is right towards that chair. Ms. Laura, come sit next to this lady and get her contact data, please.
I love you so much. Thank you so much. This is the first time I'm ever getting some help. Oh, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. Oh my God.
Thank you so very much for being here. I want to say to everybody in this room, everybody have patience if you're still here. I believe in doing things in order. So,
next to the young lady, man. Listen, for everyone here that's still here, I don't have the power. There's nothing right about me as a man that doesn't come of God. Everything wrong that has happened in my life has been because of me. Everything right that has happened in my life has been because I've been obedient to God. This gathering tonight brings me to Paul's advisement in Corinthians when he said, place not your faith in the wisdom of man, but in the spirit and power of God. It's the spirit that's moving amongst us that's going to help us to heal as a community. The message will reverberate through the community. The hope that the gentleman referred to. Let it be born again in spirit tonight. My promise to you is to perform as a servant of the people and a child of God. That I don't have greatness. I serve greatness. I seek wisdom and spirit in order to be an effective congressional and constitutional servant of we the people. If I'm successful, my point is in helping this community and helping your individual family concerns and the pain and suffering that we're observing and feeling tonight. If I'm successful at helping with that, it's not because of me, it's because I'm in service to God. I'm just saying, ma'am, I didn't mean to interfere with your question. But thank you for being here.
Come. Can I say, this young lady right here, I know we're all talking, saying a lot of things, and you're giving out cards, but I'm gonna give you $1,000, and I'm gonna give you 500 right now. I just need your name. What's your name?
That's a gentleman's spirit speaking 1,000 words.
That's what I'm talking about, right there. That's how you do it. Pull out your checkbook. Because when you say we all we got, that's what that means. That's what it looked like in action.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm a local tax accountant here, and I get a lot of people in my office that need assistance with Social Security and IRS. Now, Social Security has nothing to do with my tax profession. However, I get a lot of senior citizens who don't know how to access the Social Security office, and how that comes into play for them, based on the assistance that I've been helping with, is they need to provide to FEMA verification of income. But as you know, our local Social Security office and our IRS office have been closed since COVID or since the hurricane. So what I want to know is, how can we get a setup very similar to how insurance companies work, where we can have people here, I don't care if it's 2 days a week, 3 days a week, so people who don't have access to computers, or people who don't know how to operate computers, or people who don't have access to the internet can get the assistance that they need face to face. We have a lot of seniors, we have a lot of parents and families that just don't have access to internet, computers, and technology. So, or even the understanding to press the right prompts when you're calling the Social Security office or the IRS to get this information. So I was hoping that we could do something practical that would have an office set up here. There are so many situations, that's just one of them. We have people that cannot get their tax refunds because they're trying to verify their identity. The nearest office face-to-face to verify your identity is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Most of these people don't even have transportation to get there. So we have a great need for them here, and it's like no one from either office has made a decision to do something physical here so that citizens can get the help that they need, and better yet, even the federal assistance from FEMA, but they need to comply and provide what's needed.
Let's fix it. You're bringing something to my attention that, ma'am, perhaps can you help us with? Good lady. Ma'am, perhaps you can help us to fix this. Show and Elizabeth, let's communicate with this good lady, let's get her contact data, let's set up something parallel with our veterans outreach clinics, but with the Social Security office and the IRS. So let's set up something, there's no way we get these federal entities to set up headquarters that they haven't already done. But they will get mobile for a meeting facilitated along the model that we've done for years now with veterans outreach clinics. Let's bring the IRS and the Social Security representatives to our community center that we advertise, and we bring people from the community in to that gymnasium or that community center and go table to table and talk with Social Security and IRS. We can get Social Security and IRS to do that. Listen, we have a model right now that we do our veterans outreach clinic for veterans. It's very successful. We do a veterans outreach clinic every day. That's what I'm referring to when I'm telling my district director, let's model this after the veterans outreach clinic. But what we're gonna bring in, we're gonna bring Social Security reps and IRS reps to the people instead of having the people trying to get to an office that they haven't built yet. So if you work with my senior staff, Elizabeth and is here in Lake Charles and John Shotan, my district director, madam, if you will help us coordinate with that, if you could volunteer some assistance to help us just to coordinate that, I'd appreciate it. We'll set it up. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. I also think, I'm not from this area, but I wanted to come and speak and hear what you had to say. So I thank you. And my heart does go out to everyone in this area and prayers as well. A lot of even other areas don't even know what's going on over here. So my questions are completely off topic. One is about the illegal immigrants that are being shipped and flown out of Laughlin Air Base and also bussed out throughout the states. I understand that there are some being brought to Louisiana. Do you have any idea, short answer, do you have any idea about numbers that are being brought in, into what areas in the state of Louisiana that they are being brought in? I understand that they are in the larger cities, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, New Orleans. Are you aware of them, any in your district? And then I have another question. So.
Yes, ma'am. Let me give you a broad answer that will help you get your head wrapped around what they're doing. We have about 250,000 illegal crossings a month right now. So you're talking about scores and scores of thousands that are being allowed to stay by virtue. They're being given a summons basically to court. But once they're in the judicial system, that summons becomes a legal document, allows them to stay. Okay? So then the illegal immigrant who's now in the judicial system, and thus they're here legally. They came in illegally, they're put into the judicial system. Generally, by the time they get to their last adjudication court case, which could be 5 or 6 court appearances later, a couple years later, they don't show up. They show up in the beginning, but by the end, they don't show up. But the bottom line is, those are the folks that they're being asked, where do you want to go? They literally have maps who've crossed the southern border. So where do you want to go? Most of them have an address that they're trying to get to, a family member, and they have a job somewhere in the country.
And those who don't?
They all will by the time they leave the processing center. Some of them stand there and talk amongst each other and they say, well, come with us, my cousin will help you get a job at the garage or whatever. Or come with, we have an extra room, you can stay. You understand? So there's some depth and beauty to the Hispanic culture that's very familial, and you'll witness that in these processing centers where massive numbers of human beings who are illegal immigrants are making decisions of where to go in America. This is reality. So they choose a place. This is their address of destination, officially for the records with Homeland Security. It's anywhere in the country. And then we load them, we being, not me, I wouldn't do things this way, but we being the federal government, we get them on a bus, bring them to a plane, and then we bring them to a military base. They fly them to a military base, which is why you hear they're coming to Alexandria. Okay, they landed at the air base there. And then from there, they're bused and distributed to their home of destination, which can be in Louisiana. It could be in any sovereign state.
So the question, I understand the process. The question is about how many do we know of that are coming in this area? It's not a, oh, I'm against, it's a matter of that's that many more people who, I mean, we already have displaced here, and then you end up with more.
Well, very
who
few
don't
are coming
even
to Lake
have the
Charles.
culture. So that's what I'm saying. Okay, so that's not one. So in the
Very,
area,
yeah, I don't know of any coming to Lake Charles community, because the Lake Charles community is struggling to recover from the housing issues that we're discussing. But they're going into the major metropolitan areas of Louisiana, including Shreveport, Bossier City, Alexandria, Monroe, Lafayette, New Orleans, Baton Rouge,
so
etc.
my follow-up on that is, do they have access to the same systems that the citizens of the state of Louisiana have? And are they now taxing on the taxpayers' services that would be going to the people who are needing, who live here, who need the assistance?
And no, they have access to basic health care through the emergency care system. Once they get settled, they have access to public schools, public health, etc. But they're not American citizens. They do not enjoy the rights and freedoms of an American citizen, although they are recognized to have. Once a person sets foot on American soil, they have a right to due process. So when they're in the judicial system, which they are, once they're processed through the centers on the southern border, again, $250,000 a month. We're headed for $2 million this year. Once, according to the Constitution, when you set foot on American soil, you have the right to due process under Article 3 through the judicial system. That does not, to answer the young lady's question, that does not give them all the rights and freedoms and protections of an American citizen. They have some, and that's reflective of our Constitution, and quite frankly, I support that. I'm a constitutionalist. I think if you set foot on American soil, you have the right to due process. You're damn right. That's part of our Constitution. But that does not make you an American citizen. So they do draw, certainly, it's very expensive for the American citizenry to support an unsupported illegal immigration wave like this of massive numbers. It does impact community by community, state by sovereign state. It will draw funding and services from American citizens because there's only so much money to go around in every community and sovereign state. These are facts. But I hope I've answered it pretty clearly and candidly your question, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
We made it to the end. Also, this is Eloina is a member of the African American Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, ma'am.
We made it.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank you for coming. And my image and my perception of you have been so very different. Tonight, I saw compassion. And I'm so pleased that you came, and thank you for coming. We have so many people here that are hurting. Mr. Gendry asked a question that I was going to ask. We want to know if money was sent to us in Lake Charles, who was it sent to? Who has it? And what was it sent for? And I think you said you had some information for us. I attended a meeting, I guess about a week ago, and it was said that we don't have anybody here to work in our fields. We don't have anybody here. We don't have any homes. People can't come back here to work because they have nowhere to stay. If they don't come and work, our plants are saying they're going to pull up and they're going to leave Lake Charles. That's going to hurt us because they have no one here to work. The houses are terrible. They've all been destroyed. Some of the houses have been demolished
The city councilman is getting ready to demolish a whole lot of houses here. Maybe they need to be demolished. I rode around Sunday and my heart just fell to the ground because some of the houses, people are gone. The houses have been destroyed. All you see is slabs. And I know they have to demolish some of them, but they've been passionate to help people that giving them some time to try to get it fixed. But if we don't have help, I'm doing all right, thank God. But because I'm doing all right, I see my sisters and my brother, they're not doing all right. They're hurting. And I'm asking you and pleading with you to come here and help us. We say that our mayor went to Washington, D.C., and I don't know why he did not get on the floor to talk. Was he supposed to go through you to get to speak on our behalf? We were told that nobody asked for Lake Charles. They only asked for Louisiana. But Lake Charles has been hit. We've been hit the most. And nobody seems to care about us. Yes, we all American. But they're sending money overseas and helping other people. But we're Americans. And we're paying tax. Where am I taxed? I pay a lot of tax. Because I do make a lot of money. So because I make a lot of money, I have to pay tax to help my brothers and my sisters. I don't mind working. But I want help for them. I want my tax dollars to come back here and help my brothers and my sisters. So I thank you for coming. But when they send money overseas, they need to think about Lake Charles, Louisiana. Thank you.
Thank you, man. We'll provide for you and anyone that's interested a breakdown of every dollar. And since that was our final question,
Yes.
I'd just like to, as a closing remark, let me just share with everyone that's still present. And you, good lady, thank you for your words, your kindness, your receptive heart, your spirit. Let me just say that I have been touched and moved by the Spirit and the words that I've absorbed tonight. There's very little that I can say that would measure the impact on my heart from tonight. The room was filled with children of God, but it was overfilled with the Spirit of God. And I felt one with the community tonight. I can tell you that I am not satisfied with the job that I have done as your congressman, because I always see tomorrow as a day that I could do better. And I have no intention of relaxing my efforts and my focus and my devotion to serve with the people. And that means all of us, everyone. I've never left the community of Lake Charles. I'm here all the time, virtually every week. If I have the number correct, 285 in Lake Charles since 2017. I feel I'm a part of this community, but it's much more important to me to serve the community. A man told me long ago, don't tell me, son, show me. So, whoever said, a little less talk, a little more action. That's right. That's what Lake Charles deserves, and that's what I'm committed to deliver. Thank you all for being here.